Hi guys, Claudia Boleyn here. It's been a long time. I haven't set up in so long. I'll do an update video soon. Before we get into this video, which is a Doctor Who video, because let's just say my special interest has been like reignited. And I'm going to review these out of order as well. I'm going to start with Lucky Day. Before we begin, links in the description box. So, sometimes on channels now you can tip the creator, they call it like buy me a coffee or something. You can tip someone. If you're somebody who feels like you want to tip me for this video or for other content, instead of doing that, if you could donate to medical aid for Palestinians, I'm going to put that and I'm going to put some other links in the description box. Always and forever, it's free Palestine. I don't want to get into it too much here because this is escapism. I know a lot of people, the world is a dangerous, terrifying place right now, and like, it does link to what we're talking about here. I'll just say this because it is relevant to the video. I would expect people in fandom spaces who literally watch things like Star Wars and Star Trek and Doctor Who and Harry Potter and all these different things, the Hunger Games, right? I would expect those people to have the intelligence and empathy to apply those lessons they've learned to the real world. And a scarily small amount of people are actually willing to do that. I'm just putting that out there. It's actually really disgusting how few Doctor Who fans have said a word about Palestine. Like, if you look on their accounts, like, there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. So well done. You've learned so much. And these are, of course, the people that we love to have lecturing us about politics. So I have got like 35 pages of notes. You're not going to get all those, don't worry. Yeah, so it gave me like a really strong reaction watching Lucky Day. And I made quite a few tweets about it, right, on instinct. So I'm ADHD, autistic, on the waiting list. It's a long story. I'll get into it in another video. Sometimes I react on impulse, right? I'm also very aware that I have certain trauma triggers. So sometimes I'll react and it's like a trauma trigger, right? So you'll see something and you'll be like, okay, that's triggered me into whatever. So the reaction I had to this episode, a lot of people were coming for me about it. Hey guys, pardon the interruption. I'm pausing very briefly here to summarise the main issues I have with the episode. Because I'm neurodivergent and apparently I cannot plan in advance, I just launch right into my rambling. So what are these controversial opinions that I have? I hear you ask. Point number one is that UNIT is a very dodgy military organisation which doesn't work in the intended metaphor. Point number two is that Conrad is poorly sketched, and because of this, he's more sympathetic than he ought to be as a representative of far-right grifters. And point number three, a child abuse flashback is presented early on which seemingly has no relevance to the episode and doesn't result in any moral lesson or message of hope. Though I do hope that my opinion on this could change with later episodes. In summary, this is a writer who I believe is more troubled by lone bad apples than corrupt systems, and that's a fundamental issue in a show like Doctor Who. Okay, back to my rambling. I was thinking about it and I was like, this feels odd. Like, I don't know why, because I felt like I was going insane. So I thought about it and I was like, you know what, I've watched it one time. Like, maybe I'm missing something here. Like, maybe it was my own trauma trigger that made me feel like that. So I went back and watched it, you know, for the purposes of like my own peace of mind and for making these reviews. And now I think even more. Like, I'm totally backing I'm totally backing my initial opinion. And actually, like, I feel that even more strongly now. I think, to summarise, like, this episode is such a dream for centrists and liberals. Like, it's that. It's the sort of episode which wants you to think it's doing something political, right, and really meaningful. But when you actually scrutinise it, it's not saying very much. And the things it does say are quite troubling. I don't think that's intentional, though. I genuinely think this is an episode with really good intent. I can see what I think they were trying to do with it. I admire what they were trying to do with it. I just don't think it works. I think it comes from a really liberal, centrist standpoint. And yeah, it's just frustrating. I think with the political space we're in right now, to see something like that. Bear in mind, this is also the writer of Kablam, which I honestly didn't even know. I try not to know too much in advance about this series because I want to be like surprised. And I think a lot of people know leaks and things. So some people, like, you know, will be replying to tweets like, oh, but I've seen the leaks. And it's like, okay, good for you. I'm reacting to what I've seen on the screen. I might see more in another episode and change my view, but I don't want to see leaks and ruin that experience for myself. But yeah, I didn't even know it was the same writer who did Kablam. And that, once I realised that, I was like, oh, okay. Because I won't get into Kablam too much. Kablam was an odd episode in Jodie's era, where, like, there was, you know, it was Space Amazon, And for some reason, the Doctor took this totally centrist liberal turn, where the issue, of course, was the lone actor working against the terrible corporation. But it wasn't the corporation that was the problem. It was like individual bad apples. And it was such a centrist thing to... It was so bizarre for that to be the Doctor's standpoint anyway. It was weird. It was really, really bizarre. So I did not like that. This, to me, feels like the exact same thing. Right, I think I'm going to have to get my notes out here because I've already been rambling. But if you watch my videos, you will know this is what I do. So expect something that's really long, really rambling. I should also say as well, really quickly, I will never understand why people get so annoyed about people having opinions and criticisms or compliments towards episodes or eras or writing styles. Right, please, if you're somebody who's here and you love the classic series, you could be someone who loves the Moffat era, you could love this current era, you could love the Jodie's era. I don't care. I'm glad you enjoy something. I'm also, I literally don't care. I don't mean I don't care in that it doesn't matter to me, but what I mean is it's not going to offend me if you disagree with me. It's not going to offend me if your take is different. I'm also saying, like, I'm someone who, I got my master's in creative writing. So I'm getting a lot of people coming at me, you know, with things like, you know, but it's the narrative, you know, you need to think about, like, I guarantee you, I know how, like, I study these things, I just disagree. That's what it is. I know what the episode was trying to do. I applaud what the episode was trying to do. I just don't think it worked. I don't think the metaphor worked. I don't think the message came across well. And it just felt really centrist to me. Right. Let's get into these notes. But yeah, like, literally, whatever your feelings are, agree with me, disagree, please feel free to express it. I'm not going to be personally offended by somebody having a different opinion on something fictional. That's one thing I can't bear. I cannot bear something in the Doctor Who fandom. I don't know why it is, and you might also experience this. Some Doctor Who fans, like, they tend to forget that they're a fandom. There's like this feeling of like, we're cleverer than other fans. We're not like the other fandoms out there. We're clever people. It's like, you're a fandom. We're the same as everybody else here. Like, please, like, chill out. Okay, so let's begin. I am going to be looking at my notes. I'm sorry, it's the only way I know how to do this. I don't have somewhere else to put my notes. Okay, so we're going to go right from the very start. We start with New Year's Eve. The Doctor and Belinda show up, and there is a tiny boy, an 8-year-old boy, called Conrad. We don't know he's Conrad yet. And it's a bit odd, you know, it's a bit odd because you're thinking, you know, all this happiness is going on. What's he doing in this alleyway? Like, is no one watching him? The Doctor is very the Doctor. He's having a laugh. He's not really picking up on these vibes. Belinda, you kind of get the impression she starts to ask him, like, you know, can we take you to your parents or something? The Doctor gives him a 50p, says, it's your lucky day, and off he goes. This is the thing they choose to show us first of all. Straight away, that's an abused and neglected child. Straight away. He goes to his parents, or his mother, I don't know who the guy is. And it's very clear that he's from a home that is neglectful, he's been psychologically abused, and then he's physically abused. He tells the truth. So he basically says what he saw, he's excited by what he saw a doctor, he saw a Belinda Chandra, and his mother hits him. Right, so straight away, they chose to put that at the start of the episode, okay? That is an abused and neglected child. I feel sympathy and sadness for that child. Now, I cannot actually believe, like, the amount of... Sometimes I feel like I'm going insane. I really do feel like I'm going insane in this fandom sometimes, because I feel sorry for him. I feel pity and sympathy for that child. And I think it's really clear with the inclusion of that you're meant to understand that. That's not saying that it, like, makes him... Because you feel sorry for a villain doesn't make the villain the hero, right? We're not stupid. But feeling compassion, or at least sympathy and pity for a villain, how a villain became a villain, feeling that pain, that's just... Am I going crazy? Is that not just, like, common sense? They literally show us the child being neglected and abused, right? We see that the Doctor, you know, he meets so many people, he's so happy, telling that child it's your lucky day. But it's not. Because all that signifies for Conrad is he's going to associate that forever with being told he's a liar, with being told it's not real, with neglect, and then being physically abused. Like, you show me that, and then people are like, oh, but you can't feel sorry for Conrad. You feel sorry for Conrad. Are you a fascist? Are you evil? And it's like, I don't know what sort of fiction these people want. honestly, because like feeling sympathy for a villain is not like, it doesn't mean they're the hero of the piece. I promise you, I'm a leftist. I do not think this guy who's meant to represent the alt-right pipeline, the far-right radicalized, like all that kind of stuff, I don't think he's the hero of the piece, but I feel sorry for him. I do. I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it again. It's a crazy thing to say. I feel sad for that child. I can understand how that child became Conrad. It doesn't excuse the things that Conrad does, but I feel sympathy and compassion, and I hate the framing. And I'm going to get into this in this review. I absolutely despise this framing based on what comes next. Like, some of the dialogue that we're hearing from Conrad's mum is like, it's like, you are spoiling my night. The messages he's getting are that you are worthless. I don't care what you have to say. You're a liar. These things don't exist. Like, that is a child who is told he's manipulative even when he's telling the truth. And I am seeing people look at that scene with the knowledge they have about like what Conrad becomes and being like, but you see, you could see, you could see he was bad. Maybe he was a compulsive liar. Maybe his mum was right to clip him around the ear. And I just, at this point, it's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, you show me that scene and I feel sorry for the child, and then you expect me to go, oh, but he becomes like an Andrew Tate type. And then you don't actually show him becoming an Andrew Tate type. And then you say, I bet you feel bad now for feeling sorry for that abused child. I bet you feel foolish. No, I don't. I literally have people saying, oh, but you know, Hitler was abused as a child. And it's like, okay, well, I feel sorry for him when he was a child. I feel sorry for any abused child, like, sorry, that's so controversial. I don't like to see a child being abused by their parents. I don't like that. And I just don't understand. Understanding a villain, like, is part of fiction. Like, that's part of what makes it good. And I feel like I'm going crazy even explaining this, because this is the Doctor Who fandom. This is where we have, like, River and the Master and Missy, and there was that whole thing, right? Am I going insane? There's like a whole thing about why the Master turned out. The Master is evil. The Master is genocidal. The Master kills people for fun. But we feel sympathy at times for the Master. We understand where the Master came from. The Doctor keeps trying to save the Master. There's that hope that in there somewhere, there must be a way to reverse that childhood damage. We don't know if that's ever going to be possible, but the Doctor as a hero believes that. And we believe that. And that, to me, is a good message in fiction. Like, suddenly everyone's like, oh, but actually, just so you know, some people who are abused as children go on to abuse. And that's how it is. And it's like, yeah, we know that. But this is a show for kids, right? This is an escapism show. And this is what's so sad about this, I think. Because Conrad is obviously meant to be like a sort of metaphor for fandom. So it's like a kind of reverse Love and Monsters, isn't it? It's where the Doctor dropping into your life doesn't change things for the better. So with Conrad, you've got this kind of fixation. And I feel like I don't feel like I'm going, like, I think I'm right with this. I think he's fixated because he's in an abuse situation. He fixates on that. He fixates on being told, like, he's lucky, and then the Doctor leaving, and he doesn't know what to do with his feelings, all that abuse, all that pain, he's channeling it around that event, right? And it becomes an obsession with the Doctor. And like, I'm not gonna get too heavy on this. If you're someone who's gone through some stuff, right? So say you come from a situation like that. A lot of people watching that will have actually, and will at that very moment in time, be using Doctor Who as their coping mechanism, right? It will be the escapism they're using. I feel like that's really understandable if you come from that situation, right? His obsession has grown from that. Like, it's very mixed up in his head, and I'm pretty sure we saw that scene to let us know that, right? So we can see that kind of context. It's kind of implied. Am I crazy? I know some people are saying, oh, actually, that scene was actually a lie. That scene was because he's a compulsive liar and he's told us a lie. I don't think it is, personally, because Ruby doesn't know about his mother, which implies, like, he obviously isn't telling her about his mum, right? It feels like he's maybe keeping that abuse quiet. I don't know. You've got some people saying, oh, but later in the episode we find out that she's not dead after all. He's paying for her, so he can't have been abused. And like, these are the kind of things that I feel like the episode, sorry this is so rambling, Do you honestly want an episode like that where people are discussing, well, maybe he lied about being abused, maybe he wasn't? Like, come on now. Like, what? Maybe we should question it. We saw it on screen. We saw that child being abused by his mother, but maybe he's a compulsive liar. Great. Wonderful message. So like I was saying, there's going to be kids watching that show who are going through that. They're watching their comfort show. They're watching it and they're seeing that. And in that scene, they're thinking, that's what's happening to me. I feel that. They're watching that and they're instinctively thinking, well, they might not even have the words to be able to express it, but they're seeing it. And they're thinking, okay, that happened to me. That's going to be happening. Like, I'm sorry, people might not want to think about that. That's happening to a lot of the viewership. That's gonna be happening. It genuinely, like, breaks my heart and soul, like, the way they frame Conrad in this episode, and it just feels so cruel and uncomfortable. And, like, again, I understand, if this was, like, a real-world individual, I get it. But it's not. What we're watching is fiction. Everything is crafted. Like, when you're writing a story, you're choosing what people see. You're choosing the tone, the narrative. Like, even the music choices in this episode try to let us know what we're meant to think of different things. I really just hate that it starts with the child being abused. Like, his mother is abusing him, basically telling him he's worthless. He's latched onto the doctor, obviously, because of the trauma of, like, that abuse he's gone through. And then the episode ends with the similar thing coming from the doctor who was once his hero. And, like, I'll get into this. Like, it's not, the doctor's not wrong. Like, he's become a bad person. He should be in prison. Like, he should be. He's armed. He manipulates Ruby. He uses Ruby. He is a dangerous individual. But the doctor doesn't give him a speech about choices, right? And that's what's missing. If you're going to show me a story that begins with an abused child who becomes the way they are, presumably because of that abuse, if you're going to show that on screen, which is triggering, which is painful for people, and then you're going to have that villain thing without the vital component, which is you are not worthless or anything, it's all about the choice. I really expected the doctor was going to do, like, some sort of choice speech, right? I thought it was going to be something like, some people, like, it's not right that you were abused. That acknowledgement, like, it's not right, it's wrong, and I'm sorry you went through that. But you make choices now. You're an adult, and you've made your choices. You need to face the consequences. Maybe there's hope for you in the future to do better. You're not worthless. And, like, I and again, I know maybe this is wishful thinking, but when you think about the responsibility you've got, because this is a show that kids are watching, think about it, it's affected me, and I'm like, I'm older now. It affected me. If you're a child, that needs to be so clear, right? You don't want to have those same messages from the mother being then told by the hero figure, the doctor, without that component, which is, you are not worthless. Like, I'm sorry about what happened to you, but it's up to you now. You need to face the consequences. Like, you need to do better, and the way in which you can do better is by taking accountability now. Like, let this be the moment. Let this be the moment where you decide, Conrad. And then fine. I'm not saying Conrad has to be a hero character. Let him be a villain. Let him then turn to the doctor and say, I've made my choice. But for the doctor not to try, in a situation where you've shown me a child being abused like that, it just made me feel really sick. I didn't like it. It was horrible. And I think about, like, the responsibility of when you're writing fiction for families or something like that. For example, I went to see Thunderbolts recently. And, like, it's one of those films that you watch and it actually makes you want to live. Like, if you're a suicidal person, like me, I'm, like, suicidal, like, constantly. It even feels weird, like, the fact that I just say that so casually, but it is true. Like, I'm always, you know, I'm a suicidal person with constant passive ideation. But watching Thunderbolts, like, it's one of those films that suspends your disbelief in a way which genuinely will probably save people's lives. Like, I'm honestly not joking with you when I say I came out of that film less likely to kill myself. Like, genuinely speaking, because, look, if you want to take it really seriously on a real world level, think about the plot of Thunderbolts, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, and you should see it. These are people who've done wrong, right? Some of them have had pretty messed up childhoods. You know, you've got, like, a kid who was raised to be, like, a child soldier kind of thing. You've got a child who comes from domestic violence and gets into drugs. You've got a character, like, in John Walker, who, like, you know, he's in the military. Like, he literally kills a civilian. He kills a protester on the street with Captain America's shield. And, you know, these are people that in the real world, like, you know, these are assassins and things, and it wouldn't, in the real world, this would not work. In the real world, you would not in any way want to root for those people because they've done awful things. But the way that the film presents this is something that is so, like, necessary, and I think that's why the response to it has been so good, which is that we all have a choice. So regardless of your past, what you've been through, you still have the chance to make things right. That does not absolve you of anything bad you've done, but there is always hope. Keep going. Even if you're just sticking around to help someone, right? If you're going to help someone across the street, if you're going to be someone who gives a kind word to somebody else, keep going. Please keep going. And that's what that film gives you. Now, if you take it really literally, like with some of the way the Doctor Who people are acting, like the fandom, they'd be like, oh no, you can't enjoy Thunderbolts. You can't enjoy them. Don't you know they're villains? And it's like, yes, that's the point. We're suspending our disbelief. Obviously, if it was real life, these are not people you'd want to be superheroes. But that overall message is so meaningful to the people that will be watching it. It will be saving lives. It'll be helping people make good choices. Like, that is just a tonic, right? It's worth it. It's worth suspending that disbelief for that reason. And I think we all need to believe, especially in the situation we're at now, surely we all have to just keep in mind that we make choices every single day. We choose. No one is good or bad inherently. That's not a thing. You're not raised good, you're not raised bad. You might come from a really bad upbringing and you might make poor decisions. But you still have the power, even now, at any point in your life, you still have the power to change. You still have the power to make good choices. You could have made terrible choices yesterday, but you get to wake up today and you can say, no, that's it. I'm going to make good choices. I'm going to be good. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to try and help people. That's what we need in the world. And, you know, people being like, oh, we need more realism, because actually people need to see, who needs to see an abused child becoming an evil person without that vital nuance on screen of, you know, that obvious sort of, he's bad because he's choosing to victimize others like he was victimized. Without putting that on the screen, it loses so much weight, and I just think it feels really cruel, and I just think it's weirdly unnecessary. Who needs reminding in this world that, yeah, you know, the thing is sometimes kids can be terribly abused and then they become villains, and you know what? That's it. Like, who wants that message? We know that. We know that as adults. Do the kids need to see that? Is that what they need to see? Like, at the very least, I would have thought they would have the Doctor try, right? Because of the fact that he's shown as an abused kid, and those kids will be watching Doctor Who. Because this could be a turning point in their lives, right? It is true that, you know, when you're an abused kid, you might hurt other people. You're going to feel angry at the world, right? It's going to be really easy. You're the people that are actually going to be ripe for indoctrination by people like Andrew Tate, by the people Conrad is meant to represent. So what you actually need in that situation, in fiction, is you need that hero to be like, it's your choices, right? It is your choices. And I don't, like, you could have gone through some awful things. You can still do better. Don't be like that. I needed to see the hero doing that. I think, I will stand by it. I think it's really bad that the Doctor didn't do that. And again, people are making it all real. But look what Conrad did to Ruby, and if it was your friend. It's not real, my friends. It's not real. It's fiction. So it's a choice. Obviously, in real life, in that situation, you know... you know, the Doctor has every right. He could have murdered Conrad. You know, if Ruby was your best friend, of course. But like, you've got to think... I just think you've got to think bigger when it comes to fiction, because you're transforming people's lives. Like, you are speaking to so many people. I don't get it. I didn't like it. I thought it was badly done. I just think it was a poor choice. I don't know why it needed to be that way. It felt awful. Okay, so I've just covered so much, and I've really veered off my notes. But, you know, let's go for it. So, Conrad basically grows up to become a villain. He becomes like a sort of grifter. He's a podcaster. At first, we're supposed to think, oh, he's this really nice, sweet guy, and he's doing his podcast, and he's basically manipulating Ruby. So he's got an interest in Ruby. He sees, in fact, I'm skipping forward a bit. A year before the events of Lucky Day, so he sees Ruby and the Doctor again, right? And this is when the Shriek, like, marks him. And that's kind of an important part of the story. It marks Ruby. Ruby gets the antidote, etc., etc. And, like, I even feel like it's really bizarre that people are, like, watching it back even now, they're like, oh, because he becomes a villain and we know he's a villain, they're like, that's a sign he's a villain because he took a photograph. And it's like, actually, no, I actually don't think that's a sign of being a villain. I'm not trying to defend him. He is a villain. By the end of this episode, he's revealed as a villain. Like, he's an antagonist. He's not a nice person. He's horrible. He's ableist. He is, like, violent. He's all those things. But is that part of the villainy? I don't think it is. I don't think that's part of the villainy. I think we see Clive do it in Rose. I think if people are telling you that you're crazy because you've seen this spectacular thing and everyone's telling you you're mad and your mum's telling you you're an attention seeker and it's actually true, I think you would take a photograph to be like, it is, like, I've seen it. Like, I've seen this person. He puts out a request to be like, have you seen this girl? And Ruby answers his request because Ruby has the antidote. She wants to help him. Right. I do think it's a really funny choice to have Ruby be on the podcast. I really don't know what she's doing on that. It is quite amusing to me. And also she's not vetting this, because I feel like if you're gonna go on a podcast, has Conrad got like this entire like alternate nice guy podcast going on, like the effort that must go behind that must go into that. I've never thought of a companion sort of chatting away about the Doctor on a podcast before, and I don't know if I like that idea. Like, I don't know. It feels a bit, I don't know, it feels a bit odd to me. It's an odd choice, but I love Ruby, so I'll let it slide. Okay. So really early on, we get the scene of them doing the podcast, and Ruby is kind of saying, like, obviously we know that aliens are real, and that's when he's like, oh, some trolls say that UNIT isn't real, and that it's all special effects. So he literally says this, but some trolls online think UNIT, all this talk of monsters, is just a cover story for something else. And Ruby answers by saying, well, maybe they're afraid of the truth, and there's no reason to be scared. I mean, the people at UNIT are amazing, doing good work, keeping us safe. Now, look, this is what I'm saying as well. I got dragged for this, and I'll say it again. This episode reads like military/defense propaganda here. And this is where the disconnect is for me. I understand what they're trying to do. I understand what Conrad is meant to represent. But it doesn't work. Because you can't use... It feels like they're getting into, like, anti-vax stuff, right? And, being anti-science and not believing in the vaccination and COVID, all that kind of thing. But you can't make UNIT the stand-in for the NHS or for scientists, because UNIT is a secretive military organisation with dodgy practices, with dodgy people in charge. They are basically like our military defence now, right? Or sometimes they're a bit like the police, they're like the armed police, they're a bit like the Met Police. It doesn't work as a metaphor, because if you're using that as your metaphor, Conrad is like, he's not a good guy and he's grifting, but his points actually do make sense. And when I say this, people go, oh, you support Conrad. I'm saying no, I'm saying that the choice of using that as the metaphor doesn't work, because he actually kind of has a point. And that's not really acknowledged by the episode. So Ruby saying, oh, they keep us safe. They're defending us, they keep us safe. Obviously, she's kind of got a privileged perspective here, hasn't she? Like she knows she can call them and they'll come and help her. But somebody who's just like on the streets, why would they trust UNIT? Like, just being told, oh, you don't need to ask questions, they're defending us. I don't think it's that crazy that you'd be, like, suspicious of UNIT. When you think about the morally dodgy things UNIT have done, like, and also this is another thing I don't understand. Throughout Doctor Who's history, this kind of conflict between UNIT and the military and the Doctor and the way he thinks of things has been a constant theme, right? Even with, like, the third Doctor. One of my friends found a scene where the Brigadier destroys a Silurian base, and the Doctor is like so disgusted and horrified, and he's speechless, and he thinks it's awful. That's been like a huge thing for ages in Doctor Who, hasn't it? The Doctor doesn't like that kind of military stuff. All of a sudden, those positions, which are actually perfectly reasonable and that our hero used to have, are being presented from the mouth of this guy who's meant to represent the far right. And obviously, I understand, there are people like Nigel Farage, Andrew Tate, who will use things, genuine grievances people have, but then they'll turn them onto minorities and scapegoats. But again, this doesn't work as a metaphor, because UNIT is not a minority to be scapegoated. UNIT is a big state organisation. It's not got oversight. Who does it answer to? Like, it's a military organisation. It doesn't work. This metaphor would only really work if you're doing, like, say it was a pure scientific base. Or say it was, like, if we're really genuinely looking at the far right and how these people work, it needed to be some sort of holding space for alien refugees, right? Because when you actually look at the far right and what they're doing, these are the places they're storming. They're not holding the military to account. That's where the disconnect doesn't work. When was the last time you saw the far right demanding accountability from the military? That's not what they do. That's what the left does. That's what the left does. And this is what I'm saying about this being a centrist episode. It seems like it prioritizes the fact that there are bad apples and grifters and makes them worse in the terms of the narrative, while we're just ignoring like state violence, state sanctioned violence. Even like later in the episode when Conrad is like making his way up there with a gun on his own and they're making out like, oh, unit's really frightened, doesn't work. It would work if it was a hotel for alien asylum seekers. It would work if it was doctors and nurses and civilians. Doesn't work when it's a military base, because like, what do they need to be scared of? They can literally just stop the lift and they could kill him if they wanted, and they probably would. Even the fact that he is live streaming and Kate still does what she does tells me that he does have a point. And I'm not even saying that he's right with his point. It's like how, sorry to go all over the place, something I can't abide as a leftist is people who think that being a centrist is like the moral centre, right? The centre doesn't mean anything morally. It just means the position between the scope of politics right now, right? So if you go in the middle of that. The reason that doesn't work is because the far right will keep pushing. They will keep moving things over. Now, it is the liberals and the centre that will move to try and appeal to them. The whole system moves, which is why we're getting into a state, like, look at the Labour Party we have right now. They're not Labour. We can't even recognise that as the Labour Party anymore. They are basically centre-right. That's David Cameron, right? It's worse in many ways. What a liberal loves to do is they love to act like, because occasionally the right and the left will have the same opinion on something for different reasons, they're the same. Because they're angry, they're bad. Like, the way liberals will think about these things, and it just drives me insane, is they're angry and they're very disruptive. They care about tone, you know? And that's what it felt like with UNIT, especially with, like, Kate Stewart being in charge. It felt like, we're British values and we're very calm and reasonable, you know, even when we're doing the most awful things. You know, it's a bit dubious in the episode, but we're not as bad as the evil Conrad, the evil lone Conrad making his way up here to our military base. Right, let's talk about something really important, which is, right, the anti-Semitism smears, which have basically been used to destroy the left and have led to a government which is now complicit in the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza, in Palestine, right? That's happening right now, because there are going to be people, like the far right, are going to hate the people of Israel, Israelis, because they're Jewish, right? The far right are going to be like, they don't like Jewish people. They want Jewish people to die. Now, you're going to have the left, they would call us the far left, there's nothing far about it, who are going to be like, no, we oppose Israel on the basis that it is an apartheid state. It is settler colonialism. It is committing a genocide. It is a system, you should watch the Louis Theroux documentary, by the way, about the settlers recently, which is incredible. The Palestinians don't have the same rights. They have to go through checkpoints. They're being murdered. They're being starved. Israel is committing war crimes. Like, it's breaking international law. So you will have, like, the left and the right agreeing on a statement which is, Israel is bad. But then the liberals will have to strip that away and be like, oh, well, you're both the same then and we're the reasonable centre. And it's like, no, it's for different reasons. It's for different reasons. The episode really did feel like that general... There was that David Baddiel documentary a long time ago, and he was talking about, like, internet trolling. And it really gave an insight into what liberals think of as trolling. It's like they actually feel that being held to account is trolling and that anger is trolling. And my thing is this, right? Like, yeah, you get people online who are nasty, right? Some of them right-wing, some of them left-wing, across the spectrum, right? They don't really have power. And just someone being angry doesn't make them bad. That it really did feel that this episode really, like, played into that sort of old British, like, oh, we'll be calm while that terrible bad apple comes up here with his gun. And it's like, are you kidding me? You're all armed in that room. I'm seeing you. You've got soldiers in that room. Why are we playing this liberal game here? He's not a threat to you. Yes, he's a villain. He's not, like... It's odd. Really odd. I hated it. And again, like, I get what the episode's trying to do. They're trying to make Conrad into one of those grifting conspiracy theorists who... In fact, do you know what? Let me just say, the episode even does this clumsily. Because I can't even tell at this point if Conrad believes what he's saying or not. I feel like if it was an accurate take on these far-right people, they know they're talking rubbish. Like, Nigel Farage knows. He is using, like, austerity, and he's using that to target scapegoats and minorities. He's using that anger that people have, and he's funneling it. He knows that. He's part of it. With Conrad, it's even weirder, because if you're going to write that sort of story of that far-right grifter, first of all, what a bizarre choice to show us him being abused as a child. Like, okay, like, why are you showing us that? I'm not really sure what we're meant to make of that, other than to feel compassion and pity, which people say you're not supposed to, but I do. But then you've also got, like, various points where in the episode you can argue that Conrad actually does believe what he's saying, which does set him apart from, like, the Andrew Tates and the Nigel Farages of the world, doesn't it? Because it feels like he actually believes it, which makes things even more complicated. Because he doesn't take the antidote. Like, he hasn't taken the antidote. If you wanted to tell a story about, like, a real grifter who's making this stuff up and he doesn't know, why hasn't he taken the antidote? Why give him that backstory of his mother telling him it's not real, combined to his trauma, which would make psychological sense, that maybe as a coping mechanism, because you're afraid, you'd be like, well, it's not real. Also, giving him that backstory makes it even more difficult, because a child from that home, I can understand why they'd mistrust authority figures. I can understand why they'd be angry. They'd want accountability. They would feel like that power imbalance would bother them. Like, why add these? It's really bizarre, because at one point it's like, logically speaking, I'm feeling sorry for him. And then I'm thinking, but I know you're trying to sketch him as a far-right person, but you're not doing it very well. Like, everyone's like, he's meant to be the far-right, so we hate him. And I'm sitting there like, they needed to have written him better. Because he's ableist, that comes out. He's really nasty to Shirley. And it doesn't make any sense that, oh, this one's on benefits. She's working. That's believable, though, because this is the kind of thing they say. It doesn't make any sense. But, you know, there's little things that are true of these far-right grifters don't seem to apply to Conrad. It's like they haven't sketched him properly. I think you can make the argument that Conrad actually does believe it's fake. Or that he is so frightened that he has to try and believe that it's fake. And that would work if this was the story of a radicalized far-right guy, right? So if it's a boy who's been radicalized into the far-right. But they're presenting him as a leader. And I believe these actual leaders in real life, they know. I don't think there's any ambiguity. They know and they're using it. That doesn't come across with Conrad. And that ambiguity just makes things so confusing. And again, he actually makes so many points in the context of the story. I've seen people saying that, like, you know, oh, you know, it's awful, you know, the disdain he feels for Kate. And I'm thinking, well, the Kate we're seeing, and I feel like it is intentional here. Like, I think this is actually quite a strong point, although it's not done well enough. She is morally ambiguous. She is getting to a point, I think, where she's got a little bit too much power. She's not accountable. She's kind of falling into a bit of paranoia. But also, she's got an inappropriate workplace relationship going on. She's hiring a load of kids. Like, people are getting dusted. Like, they're not being upfront about what they have, which is essentially, like, nuclear weapon kind of thing. Who are they accountable to? Like, there's no human rights they're accountable to, you know? There's no alien rights, we know. She's keeping things in vaults. Like, even that in itself is worthy of the anger that these people feel towards UNIT, and it's justified, which is why I think it's so jarring at the end to have Ruby be allied with them, rather than have her own moral position, which is against Conrad because he has mistreated and abused her, and he deserves that scorn from her, but also not aligning with the system. Why would she align with that system? We've literally seen that Kate Stewart is holding these aliens in vaults, living beings, and think about this. She lets that creature out to scare Conrad. She gives a sentient being its freedom to toy with it, only to let it attack Conrad a little bit, and then she puts it back in the cell. Like, she's playing with a living being's life. A lot of these things they're saying about UNIT, like UNIT lies and UNIT spies, they're presented like, oh, look at these dangerous far-right yelling that. And it's like, well, no, it doesn't work with UNIT in the metaphor, because UNIT does do that. It doesn't work. Like, even the bit where they're like, oh, how evil Conrad is for doxing these people. It would work if it was, like I said, an asylum seeker hotel. If it was for people in hospital. It's not. It's for people working for the military. It's not hit in the same way. It really feels like the writer is a centrist who can't distinguish, and they just think loud and angry with their protest signs. They're angry. They want accountability. And the messages, and I'm sure, like, people will say to me, oh, that's not the message. Why then does the episode keep giving me characters talking about how, oh, these children with their grievances. It feels like the centrists being like, student politics, empathy, accountability. Who wants those things? Trust the state. Trust us. You know, it feels like a Keir Starmer wrote the episode, is what I'll say. That's what it feels like to me. They treat these protesters not as people who have absolutely valid concerns and have been manipulated by Conrad because he's making money off it. That's not what they're showing us. People are saying, well, maybe that is what they're showing us. It isn't. They're doing everything they can to act like, oh, you know, he's whipped them up into a frenzy. But the moral, like, am I crazy? The moral needs to be that actually all these things, they do make sense. He's just grifting off it for his own ends. And it's written so badly that maybe he isn't. Maybe he actually does believe in it because of the weird choices they make around his own perspective and his own background. Pretty much everything they say, take away, they threw, like, the benefits ableism is obviously awful and evil, but the rest of the stuff he's saying, like, it makes sense. And it doesn't matter to me that it's a bad person saying it. And again, it feels like that liberal thing of being my enemy's enemy is my friend, rather than principle. Because it's like, because he's saying it, therefore it's all bad. The music of the episode even gives it that villainous undertone. You know, when they're talking about him even, they're like, oh, well, he's a tax dodger. And oh, he's still paying for his mother and he's making money. And it's like, okay, but the things he's saying are landing with people because they actually, that makes sense. It's like how in real life, like reform is evil and it's clever because they are using valid things, which is the fact that the parties are very much the same. When you vote, it doesn't feel like it matters. You've got bureaucrats in charge, and it is going to swing back between Tories and Labour, and anyone who thinks anything anything slightly different is going to be just completely obliterated from the system. Look what they did to Jeremy Corbyn. Austerity is happening either way. You've got Labour who's competing to be more racist than Reform because it wants the votes. Right, there's no hope. Austerity has made that possible because people don't have anything, and people like Nigel Farage are pointing to that, and they're saying, right, that's the point of migrants, that's the point of trans people, like that's what they're doing here. But the starting point is a valid starting point. It's just that you have to make the decision. Are you going to start believing that you're suffering because minorities aren't suffering enough, or are you suffering because the people in charge are keeping that system going? As a leftist, I believe that the systems are to blame. And the episode doesn't seem to, beyond giving us a little bit of moral complexity with Kate, it doesn't present UNIT as villainous, as a institution, and it should. Because they are a military force that show up with their helicopters and they show up with their guns and everything. And yeah, it's a fake out. And yeah, you know, Conrad's wasting people's time with it. And but honestly, like, no, when they're arresting people there, it doesn't feel right. It feels like the Met. It's like, why are you arresting them? For civil unrest, okay, why have you got your guns in this village? Like, if you can't handle criticism of your big military base, your big military organisation, and you're going to get angry and petty about it, then you're Keir Starmer, aren't you? Just deal with it. Like, they made out like it was wrong that these people were all over the hashtags. You know, it's like, oh, all these young people with their hashtags. Well, the way people are perceiving it is that Conrad was a villain. And it's like, I don't care. I still do think it was wrong they had all their guns pointed at him. Why did they treat him like that? Like, it's wrong. And I feel like it's because, I don't know, I'm a leftist and I have, like, ideas and principles and things, and I don't actually, if it's applied to someone I don't like or someone I do like, it's irrelevant to me because it's a principle. It doesn't change my mind that it's being used against someone like Conrad who's a villain, because it's still wrong. UNIT is not good. Like, UNIT is not good in universe. Am I going crazy? Then, like, having Conrad be ableist, right, and be a tax dodger doesn't mean that UNIT, like, UNIT is still bad. If you are actually in that world, let's go there because people want to take it really seriously. You're actually in that world. We're not the Doctor. We're not a companion. We don't have that kind of, that relationship with UNIT, that kind of inbuilt protection. Why would you trust or believe in UNIT? Do you think they're there for you just because they say they're going to defend you? This big military organisation? It feels like that defence military propaganda again. It's like when you want accountability from the Met, you know, like the riots and people wanting the Met held to account, right? And the reaction being this anger and people saying, well, see how you like it without police if someone attacks you and then you'll get hurt. That's what it felt like UNIT was doing. It felt like a complete misuse of power. In the way they dealt with Conrad, it was almost this kind of vengeful liberal dream of being like, oh, you don't think we should be having a defence budget? Well, this is what happens. Maybe you should get attacked by a terrorist. That's what it feels like to me. That kind of sneering... I don't know, like, that's how it feels to me, and I feel like it's backed up by the viewers. So, like, units showed up with their helicopters and everything, and it's like, oh, Conrad's a villain, look, he's doing his Superman, his think tank thing, like, oh, he's really bad, he's he's live streaming. You've even got people written there as things like, oh, what are you going to do, arrest us? Oh, we're streaming, the world can see it. And it's presented like they're an annoyance. And it's like, let them they should be live streaming. The military have just showed up. And at that point, I don't think they've hurt anybody, bar Conrad's abuse of Ruby, obviously. But what has the group actually done at that point? Why is UNIT, like, in there with all their guns? Like, what? You know, you have, like, a line here, which is, you know... These are some of the things they're saying. They're saying things like, this is censorship. Touch us and we'll sue. We'll bankrupt you. And they're making out, like... oh, these annoying people, and it's actually like, well, actually, yeah, like, you don't need to manhandle these people, even if they're from a group you don't like. You don't need to do that. You're armed. You don't need to. The hashtags, UNIT lies, hashtag demand the truth, hashtag no more monsters. And again, right, looking at the political system we're in right now, are you telling me, honestly, that it's that crazy to believe that you might believe that UNIT, which is a military organisation, is creating an enemy that doesn't exist or isn't as bad as they're saying, so that they can get funding, so they can do whatever they want with it? Like, are you telling me that's not how it works right now in this country with the military and defence? That's literally, like, now, of all times, to be like, that's the crazy view, and you should just, you should just believe UNIT. Why would they? Why would these people believe UNIT? Why would we believe UNIT? They're not watching the show Doctor Who. And even us watching the show Doctor Who, I feel like can see that UNIT are not the good guys here. That doesn't make Conrad the good guy. They can both be bad guys. But UNIT is worse. UNIT is the worst bad guy, because I'm always going to believe that, like, a bad apple, grifter, is not as dangerous as something funded by the state, that is military and funded by the state. And literally, Kate was going to kill Conrad with complete impunity. Live. He says here, lying to the public, spending our money, hiding in your tower and doing what? Doing what? And it's presented like, oh, he's a silly boy. He doesn't understand what's going on. And it's actually like, he's kind of right. Like, you need to be accountable about what you're doing up here, because people are paying for it with their taxes. And it doesn't matter that Conrad is a tax dodger. Okay, he's a grifter. His points make sense. Right, this delivered at Kate, and we're meant to be on Kate's side here for some bizarre reason. Or if we're not, the viewers have been. But the lies stop today. There are people all over the world watching this, sharing, reposting, demanding the truth. They're using you, all of you, for her dirty work. And he's right. He's actually right. So Ruby says, do you think UNIT can't handle a few reject cosplayers? Because that's all you are. It's ridiculous. And it's kind of like, Ruby is the only character I understand being really, like, angry with Conrad because of the way he's behaved towards her. But also, it makes me dislike Ruby a little that she's so allied with this state group, if that makes sense. Like, it's kind of like, why would these people trust UNIT? And it doesn't make sense, because this is a Doctor Who where I feel like the politics of this era are so strange, because on one hand it like tries to be super progressive, but on the other hand it totally gets it completely wrong, and it's like this weird midpoint where it's very sensitive to certain issues and then weirdly dismissive of others. And I just feel like the principles are just a bit all over the place, honestly. And then we see all like the TV, like, let's see, Conrad is doing like his rounds on the television. Okay, we've got Trinity Wells is back. We love Trinity Wells. Fascism on the streets of Britain tonight. An innocent podcaster is in custody after a harmless stunt in the British village of Colston. The BBC says he's held for 24 hours on charges of civil unrest, but released after public protests and social media backlash. And they're painting it like it's a bad thing. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, people are right to have backlash. It doesn't mean you have to agree with Conrad to be like, actually, why are the state doing this? Why are they being so incredibly heavy-handed? Why are they being so secretive? What's going on here? Why would they trust the government? Why would they trust the government in that universe? Why? You know, they've got him on the one show and they're acting like, oh, he's playing the victim, and Alex Jones is saying about, they were all pointing your guns at you and it was really brave. And we're supposed to be like, oh, he's not so innocent. And it's like, well, I still didn't want them to aim all their guns at him because at that point he wasn't armed. Later in the episode, when he's armed, I understand why they've got guns at him. But he wasn't armed then, was he? So it was excessive force. It was excessive. It felt like a personal slight, like the sort of thing Starmer would do. And then the way they present it, like, oh, and because of all this backlash, now UNIT's gonna have to defend itself in Parliament. And it's like, good they should, because the metaphor doesn't work. It needed to be a hospital. It needed to be just a plain science base. It needed to be this humanitarian group that's working for good that the right are smearing. Like, it's good that the government are demanding accountability. I don't care. Like, it's really, really good that they are that they're having to defend themselves in Parliament. Why weren't they before? Why weren't they being transparent? Who's in charge of them? Do they answer to anybody? Right, they have Shirley saying this, and this is just unforgivable to me, right? This is a grudge dressed up as a youth movement. And to me, that was the most liberal. My brain just went, pfft. And this is when I knew they're really going all liberal in the middle here. Because it doesn't make sense. Maybe if it's Conrad, that makes sense. It's a grudge from Conrad. But all those kids, the youth movement, it's like they're delegitimizing the youth movement, which is really weird. And it's like, well, no, they've got a point. What do you mean it's a grudge dressed up as a youth movement? Well, why would they all have a personal grudge against UNIT? It doesn't make sense. They're desperate to keep piling this stuff on to present it as this silly, childish politics of these kids, they even had the line that, oh, well, Conrad actually wanted to join UNIT at one point and we turned him down. I knew I couldn't trust him. And even that, it's like, what's the message here? He was at most 17 at that point. And you were like, I didn't trust him even then. Like, okay, like what am I supposed to make of that? Like, oh, good on you. You looked at the 17-year-old, the troubled 17-year-old, and were like, oh, can't trust him. I always knew he was bad. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Right. Ruby says here that he's been craving attention his whole life. This is when she says the whole, his mum practically ignored him till the day she died. And then we get Shirley kind of smirking. And again, this is so unforgivable because Shirley, I think, is the most likeable member of UNIT. I like her way more than Kate. She's my favourite. But they give her these lines, right, because they know that she's the likeable one. And it's just really frustrating. So she's saying, well, his mother's not dead. Moira Clark lives in the south of France. Nice villa, paid for by Conrad. Meanwhile, he's raking it in. And the way that's delivered like it's an own. And it's like, what does that prove about any of the points being made or whether or not he was abused? Like, why? I don't understand that. So that's perfectly plausible and real. Like, let me tell you that you would still love your abusive parent and still provide for your abusive parent because abuse is complicated and difficult. And like, I don't know what they were trying to go for with that. It felt like he's lying about being abused, and it's like, great message. We love it. That's what we love to see in Doctor Who. From now on, I'm gonna be so suspicious. I'm gonna be so skeptical. When someone tells me their parents have abused them in childhood, I'm gonna be so skeptical. I'm gonna be like, that's interesting because you sent your dad a birthday card I saw. That's just interesting to me, And I've heard you were telling a lot of stories as a child. And look, I know you got kind of hit, but have you considered it was just a clip round the ear and maybe you were annoying and you kind of deserved it? I'm just saying. And it also feels, I think the general vibe, like, the thing about liberals, which is really annoying, is that Stephen Fry vibe, right? You know what I mean. If you get it, you get it. But there's the bit where, Kate comes in with Ibrahim, and I hate that relationship, by the way. I'm just saying, Kate Stewart is a lesbian. I don't know what they're doing. She's so clearly lesbian. Bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. But she gets in, and Ibrahim says to her that, there are orders to have the payload transferred to Geneva because their security status has been downgraded after the whole Parliament thing. And Kate's like, oh, this is getting way out of hand. And her attitude is like, as if it's ridiculous. It's as if like, oh my gosh, of all the terrible things having to answer to Geneva, oh, now they're taking our security status away. Oh, we have to defend ourselves. And people will say to me that you're meant to feel like UNIT is dodgy, but I don't believe that's what they're doing. I don't think at any point in the episode do they want us to think UNIT is dodgy. It's that individual bad apple thing again. I don't think they want us questioning UNIT as a system, and that's why I think it's centrist. I think they want us questioning the leadership. I think they want us to question Kate. Like, that's really clear. She's morally dubious. She takes a personal slight because of her father, and she's vengeful. And in some ways, I actually think that's one of the stronger parts of the episode, because that's she's doing these terrible things, but it rings quite true for somebody who's in power. But the episode never really wants us to see UNIT as a threat. They want the answer to all of everything. The answer to these centrist people is there's bad apples. It's never systems. It's never conditions. You've got Kate saying things like, oh, well, if there's enough pressure, they'll fold. They'll fold, and these people in Parliament, they only care about their jobs. And I mean, okay, that rings true, because, I mean, that's absolutely true. You look at the people we got in Parliament now, and they've got no principles at all. Not a principle between them. But again, it's presented like, oh, this terrible attack on UNIT. And it's like, that's not actually Conrad, though, is it? Like, that's not Conrad. Conrad has many flaws. He's not a nice guy, but that's not him. And people wanting you to be accountable, it might be frustrating for you, but it's also a good thing. It worries me that the people in the universe aren't at least saying, well, maybe we should be a bit more transparent about what we can be, because, it's important people trust us. We've got a lot of power here. At no point do they think, maybe it's us. Maybe we need to be more accountable to people. Like, maybe we need to be more upfront. Right, then we get this speech. And this is, oh my gosh, when I heard this. Couldn't make it up. So Ruby says, oh no, and if they do, they crack down on us, then the tech from UNIT goes public. And I think Kate says this. She says, yeah, imagine what happens. Oh, it could be Ruby. Sorry, I didn't write this down. Imagine what happens when a dictator gets access to a time window or a transduction drive. Our technology would tear the world apart, Kate says. And this feels like this centrist thing where it's like, we're a civilized nation, okay? Like, we've got a nuclear deterrent here because we're civilized and we can be trusted. But imagine if the uncivilized nations had nuclear weapons. Like, imagine that happening. Like, only we can be trusted with it. Imagine tyrants and dictators got hold of these. There's no... I don't know, I just feel like the British state feels like we're this neutral good. It's like in James Bond, kind of, where it's a bit like, it's Paddington, it's James Bond, it's Captain Tom, it's the London 2012 Olympics, it's, look, at the end of the day, we're a fair and just people, let's just be reasonable here. And they've got the protesters outside, they're yelling with their banners, and they're yelling and they're asking for accountability, and we're meant to think, oh no, they're harassing people at work, and it's like, you are a military base, you've got weapons in there, you've got people imprisoned in there, you are not a hospital. This is not a COVID metaphor. This is a very poorly drawn analogy, because good for those people, and I don't care that it inconveniences Kate. I hope they all get in there and free the aliens. Free the Shriek. Free the Shriek. Also, like, you have to laugh. Like, the way that UNIT is even depicted in this, the way, this is just me being a UNIT anti, like, just call, if I was in Universe, I would be like the left-wing version of Conrad, where I'll be like, join us on the left, where we also take down UNIT, but we're not ableist and we're not we're not ableist, we're not doing those things. But yes, we will take UNIT down. But they have the fact that, oh, a guy's gone in from one of his people, one of Conrad's people is in there, and he's got a staff list, and how has he got in here? We're this top secret base. It's like, we're supposed to believe that they're victims in this, but also that they're like super powerful at the same time. It's bizarre. I don't know what the story wants us to believe. And I'm so like, they've let this guy who's like a proper far right person, this Jordan guy, is like one of those GB News people. Like, he's got all those different things on his file or whatever they keep on him. But they hired him. So you're telling me that you've let that guy in there and he's been working for you, as well as the kids you're employing? Like, are you even paying the children? Who knows? You're talking about, oh no, dictators and tyrants might get hold of things. You're obviously not doing a good job. The fact this has even been able to happen. Like, great job, UNIT there. Like, they've literally got a list of, like, his subscriptions to these, like, radical far-right places. And they're like, oh, maybe we should have vetted him before we got him in here. He's made it to the top. He's in here with Kate Stewart. He's in here with Shirley. Oh, my gosh. Okay, so that sort of brings us to, like, the climax of the episode, which is Conrad's finally made it in, and he's doxed the people working at the military institution. And in my head, I'm just kind of thinking of, like, I've got to be careful what I'm saying here, but when I think of the protesters that are stopping weapons shipments getting out to Israel, for example, and shutting down factories and things like that. I'm thinking of those things, and I'm kind of thinking, not the worst evil I've ever heard in my life. You know, like, it's really not. And so in he comes, and they obviously have to have him betray his friend because, you know, he's a far-right dude. They've got to show us that he's the villain. They've got to keep repeating to us that he's this villain. And he is a villain. He is a villain. But we mustn't start thinking about the fact that some of the things he's saying are actually kind of true. So it's like, do you know what, though? He betrays his friends. The state, oh no, the state doesn't betray. We're civilized in the state. State violence isn't a problem. So Conrad is violent. He is violent. He literally shoots the guy he's working with. We need to see on every level, like on a personal level, this guy's evil. They've got to keep showing us these things. We've got to see UNIT standing there together, like huddled, even though they're from the military institution, being like, oh no, he's coming up here. Even though Ibrahim's like, we could literally just stop the lift. And Kate's like, oh no. Oh no, I want to play with my food. I'm from the British state, and you don't question the British state. I'm going to torture you. That's what she's doing. So Ibrahim is like, Kate, we need to authorize a deadlock seal, and she won't do it. They've even got like this sort of, they've got her being afraid, like, how many of them are here? Are they armed? Are they armed? You're armed. What am I looking at here? It's such a liberal thing, isn't it? Like, it really is. It's absolutely bizarre to me, like, acting like the state is suddenly not powerful. Like, this guy, how has he made his way up there even? But again, like, that's not a problem for me. Like, actually something that I think is quite strong is the way they write Kate Stewart. I'm just concerned by many of the people who are watching it and being like, actually, she's totally justified. And it's like, no, I don't think she is. And I'm pretty sure even the episode, Centrist as it is trying to show us that Kate's going too far. She literally says, this man has single-handedly undermined everything we work for. We need to finish this. And again, it's that idea that it's a single bad apple, that he's done all this, he's created this distrust and this mistrust, and he's done this. They even have, like, Conrad, he gets in there and he's armed, and they're armed, so it's a bit of a standoff. And he says, because he's on live camera, he says, because he's on live stream, he says in a small voice, I'm just defending myself. Like, and it's meant to be like, oh, he's manipulating his viewers because he's saying, oh, I'm just defending myself. But actually, like, no matter how they try and frame that, they also have their guns on him. Like, he's not an innocent person. He's gone in there and he's aiming his gun at Ruby, right? And he's already, like, mistreated Ruby beyond terrible ways. But even that, feeling like, oh, look at this person here, and he's lying, he's pretending he's the victim versus the state, but he's not. Don't believe what they say. You might see the state pointing multiple guns at somebody, but don't believe them on the live stream. Like, that's not going to be a dangerous thing to put in your show. And then you've got the speech he gives, you know, he starts calling them traitors, and again, you know, obviously he's meant to be like the far right, but they haven't got enough into that politics for me. Like, he doesn't explain why or what that means. Like, he needed to be, if you're gonna do political, right, if you're actually gonna give me far right, give me far right. Like, actually give me that. Make his whole thing be about, it's not about the military power, because again, the far right do not care about Britain being this military power and having this extra stuff. If this was real, the far right would love UNIT. They'd adore UNIT. They'd be like, I think Kate Stewart should kill more aliens. Good for her. It's British values. We don't need, like, rights for aliens. They'd love it. It would be like a power fantasy. They'd love UNIT. Like, you would need, if he was, like, a really good far right analogy, you'd need for him to be somebody that was fearful of outsiders. So you'd need it to be more about, look, oh, they're letting aliens in and there's no room. And, oh, they say these aliens are victims and they're trying to help them, but we don't want them here. They kind of give him the line later in the episode with the Doctor where he says, like, get off my planet. But it's just, why imply? I don't understand. You've got episodes like Dot and Bubble, which are so powerful. I think, anyway. And then you've got an episode which is trying to act like it's really political, but it just doesn't, like, it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere deep. Like, there's nothing, I don't know, it just feels really lazy and weird. Like, we needed him to be angry about, like, you're helping these aliens, which UNIT isn't doing. Like, and again, I'll say it, the far right would love UNIT. The far right would be like, we don't need to answer to Geneva. Like, you know, this is the British state and they're doing what's best. And it would actually be in the real world. It would be the left, wouldn't it? That would actually be against UNIT. That's the honest truth, isn't it? It would be the left that would be like, you need to be accountable here. That isn't a right-wing belief. That isn't what the far right would believe. They don't believe that the military should have scrutiny like that. They are very pro-military. They are very pro-gun. They are very pro-defence. Defence is offence. Pretty much, they'd love Kate Stewart. They think like that. And that's why the episode falls apart for me, because that is more dangerous. That's the danger we're facing right now, rather than pointing at this bad apple Conrad, who in the grand scheme of things isn't so much of a villain as a unit. And then you have like the big standoff, and you've got Conrad in there, and he's saying, oh, you and your imaginary goblins, Ruby, and he's really nasty to Ruby, and he's got no right to be nasty to her after what he's done, and he's treated her very, very badly. But they have her saying, you know, he's like, oh, I'm exposing the truth, and she goes, but you're not, though. This isn't about a cause. It's grandstanding and ego. You're a lying little boy who can't bear to be called out. Now, this is what I'm saying to you, like, I got stick for saying this, and maybe I didn't articulate it well enough, but why are you going to show me a little boy who wasn't lying and was abused by his mum and told he was lying, only for the hero character to be like, you're a lying little boy, like, and basically you deserve it, you're a lying little boy. I'm not saying the episode explicitly kind of says that, but those messages throughout, like him being refused when he was only 17 because he couldn't be trusted, like, all these little things in the episode are so strange, and I just wonder why. Why was it written like that? Because these are all choices. It's written, it's fiction. You're a lying little boy, she says. And again, it doesn't work because he hasn't taken the antidote, so that doesn't even work anyway. You know, and then you've got Kate suddenly snapping into action. You know, she gets between Ruby and Conrad, and she's like, don't you point a gun at her. And obviously she's correct, like, don't you dare point a gun at Ruby someday, don't do it. But it's again, it's like that kind of, Ruby is a special person to them because she's the Doctor's companion. Right? She's close to Kate on a personal level. Kate cares about her. But Una constantly, like, aiming guns at people. And it feels that very liberal thing where it's like, the issue isn't pointing the gun, it's who's pointing the gun. And are you state, or are you, like, a rogue actor? And also, like, something that struck me, and again, like, sorry if it's, like, trauma talking, but let's just go here. Because they gave us that introduction to Conrad, I always felt that kind of pity in me for him. Like, as awful as he became, or they wanted me to, I know what they meant him to be. They meant him to be like an alt-right, far-right figure, and yeah, awful. But you know, that Kate standing between Ruby and Conrad and being like, don't point a gun at her. And I just, in my mind, I was thinking, like, I wonder what might have happened if someone had ever got between Conrad and his mum. I wonder what would have happened then if someone had been there to be like, don't touch him. Don't call him that. Leave him alone. Like, that's the kind of thing that just haunts me in my brain. Yeah, it made me sad. And this isn't me defending his actions or anything, but it's like that being the first thing we see of him in the whole story. And, like, that just hurt very much. And then for him to get the sort of, Kate says she doesn't remember him. She checked her notes from the interview. And that's when she says the 3 words that summed him up were don't trust him. And again, like, are you honestly telling me that you don't feel like a tiny bit of sadness there? Even if it's just the tragedy of the fact that all those things his mum said to him about him being a liar and everything, they've kind of come to pass here, and he's kind of getting that again on a live scale, like in front of the world. Like, I feel like I'm going crazy, but I still feel sad about that. It still feels painful, even just as a tragedy. It feels really painful. Like, oh god, it's horrible. He's probably been told he's a liar all his life. And then you've got him saying, he says, you know, you think you're so superior, up in your tower, looking down on us, and she goes, keeping you safe. And it's like, it feels like police propaganda. It feels like defense propaganda. It's like, I don't need to explain what we're doing, just trust that we're keeping you safe. just trust us. Trust us. We're the state. And then you've got Ruby saying you're deluded. And again, like, I'm not saying she's wrong, she's right, she's got every reason to, like, despise this man, but in the context of the story, like, what a way to go with that character and how we saw him as a kid. And then they have him yelling, the grown-ups are talking. Which, again, is so bizarre, because that's not even, I don't even think that's something the far right kind of say. I feel like, to me, that feels more like the sort of thing liberals tend to say. I feel like the far right are more nasty and personal and aggressive. And like basically the ableist thing he said earlier, that to me rings very far right. The grown-ups are talking feels like the kind of thing Keir Starmer says. Like, it feels like the kind of thing the centrists will say when you suggest that we shouldn't be arming a genocide. The grown-ups are talking, kids. And again, like, this in the context of the first scene that they gave us, that they chose to give us for him. The grown-ups are talking, him going to the grown-ups, the grown-up that was in charge of him, and them not caring and having their backs to him, and him trying to tell them something, and his mum physically abusing him. The grown-ups are talking, go away. Like, it's sad. I don't think, like, I feel like I'm going crazy, but I don't think it's wrong to find that sad and tragic and to feel compassion. Like, I really don't. I continue to feel, even thinking about it now, like, it's a really sad arc for a character. You get the whole Kate thing where she's like, oh, be careful what you say about my father, because he says something like, your father was a coward. And, like, it's like, just get over it. Just get over it, Kate. Like, you know, you're a person of, like, great power here. Just take the insult and just be the bigger person and just be like, whatever you say, it doesn't matter to me. But no, let's torture him. And actually, again, like, this is another thing. Like, I was saying this earlier, like, my friend sent me that footage of when the Brigadier, like, blew up the Silurian base. Maybe that, you know, there'll be people who would be anti the Brigadier in that universe, and from their perspective, it's not that crazy. Like, it's really not. It's not that crazy at all. And I'm just going to quickly get into this. The Waters of Mars, which is an episode I love. I think it's incredible. And I actually think part of the strength of that episode is that Adelaide kind of represents that kind of skeptical person who's intelligent but doesn't see the Doctor as a hero necessarily, and isn't willing to just immediately give him the benefit of the doubt. I think that's when Doctor Who is kind of at its strongest, when it's able to really give you, I don't know, it's like when it's able to criticise those things, like I just think the show's got less bold, if that makes sense. People are saying it's more political than ever now, but I don't think it is. Or if it is, I don't think its messaging is as strong or as accurate. And Conrad says, oh, you know, the Brigadier's only legacy was a pack of lies. And then Kate says he was like 100 times the man you are. And, like, for the people watching who are like, yay, let's maul Conrad because of that. It's like, the Brigadier killed a lot of people. The Brigadier's actually killed more people than Conrad. I don't think at this point Conrad's killed anybody. Okay, he did shoot a guy, which is bad. But he hasn't killed anyone. And, like, why is the response from people to this scene been like, yeah, that's right, that's what you get if you insult the Brigadier? And not like, oh no, like, Kate's taking it too personally. Maybe she's going a little bit too far. Like, why? It worries me. And again, these are the kind of liberals that, I don't know, if you know liberals, then that's the kind of thing they fantasize about, isn't it? It's like, oh, imagine they got a real dressing down, and they criticised the state, they criticised authority, imagine they got a real dressing down live. You know, they've got Kate being all angry that, you know, oh, you shot someone to get in here, you know, like, that's a really terrible thing, and it is a really awful thing, but it really is bizarre. They have him saying, well, maybe you shot him, or maybe he was an actor, or he never existed. And it's kind of, I feel like that's lazy dialogue, because he's on live right now. Why would he say these things out loud? It's like they have to let us know, this guy's really villainous, like, he's awful. We have to make it really, really explicit, guys. He's meant to be the far right. We're not sketching it that well. He's meant to be the far right. But why would he say that on live stream? Why? So then we have Kate's power trip where she's like, oh, it's time we showed you and your followers exactly what we're protecting you from. Yeah, Kate Stewart there really showing why, unfortunately, Conrad kind of has a point. He's afraid. The shriek is being let out. And again, like, why is UNIT using a sentient being like this? Like, let's let it free for a little while and then we'll taser it again. It doesn't have feelings. I did like the touch where it's Ruby and Shirley. And actually, Ruby, even in spite of all he's done to her, being that person that was like, we can't let this happen. I really liked that touch from Ruby. I think that was really good of her, because she's the character that actually doesn't have... She would be completely justified to want terrible things to happen to him, honestly. But this is the speech that happens while he's cowering and afraid. And they're begging Kate to please help him. She says, what's behind your mask, Conrad? An angry little man who put the safety of his country at risk. Everything my father ever worked for personal gain, for a lie. What do you mean, you put the safety of this country at risk? Like, it feels, again, like defense propaganda. Like, oh, you put the safety of the country at risk. Like, are you kidding me right now? Like, that's not the issue with Conrad. Am I going insane? That's not the evil thing that he did. And then the scene where the creature is literally about to, like, maul his face, and he says, I lied, okay, I lied, please help me. And people are like, see, that shows he was lying all along. And I'm kind of like, well, it actually doesn't, right? Because if they're saying to you, if someone says to you, like, look, say it's a lie, and then you won't get mauled, you probably would be like, yeah, it's a lie, I was lying, help me. I mean, I don't understand that. Bizarre. I don't think anyone comes out of that very well, except from Ruby and Shirley. They come out of that very well. And again, like, they have he thanks Ruby, and she tells him to go to hell. And I didn't like it, not because I don't think she's got the right to tell him to go to hell. She's got every right to tell him to go to hell. it's the way they framed it with, she goes to stand with Kate after that situation. It's like, Ruby's like, I've picked my side, I'm going to stand with Kate, how dare you? And I just don't think that is very Ruby. I don't think it makes sense. After what you've just witnessed, I really don't think that you would be, like, with Kate. I think you'd be really shocked and traumatized. I think you'd be with Shirley. I think you'd just be like, I need air. Like, I can't believe what I just witnessed. Like, what just happened here? You know, it really tries to tell us that, you know, this is our hero character, Ruby, and she's standing with Kate. Look how powerful they are. Because even after all that, where you like, definitely they presented Kate Stewart as a villain in that scene. 100%. I'm not saying it makes Conrad a hero, but she's also a villain in that scene in a different way, in a more dangerous way. They then have Ruby out there in the sunset, and, you know, everyone's smiling and everyone's laughing. And Kate gets this kind of, she's hugging Ruby, and it's like, well, she's actually done something really awful. But it's like, but it's okay, because look, she cares for Ruby. It's the humanizing of her, because, of course, like, it's like there's no scrutiny on the state. There's no scrutiny on that. And what you get is, and this is, again, like, it drives me insane. Ibrahim is like, look, last night maybe you went a little bit too far. And it's like, what do you mean? Like, people are like, see, the episode does have good morals. It said she went a bit too far. That's not enough. After what happened there, like, I don't want them to be among mates. Like, look, Kate, I'm not going to say anything to anyone about what you did, even though it's kind of live. But, look, I just feel like you should, like, chill out a little bit on that. Like, we don't need to let them know. We need an investigation on that. I don't even care. That should be investigated. What do you mean it's just sort of like, look, maybe you went a little bit too far. Look, Geneva's kind of annoying us right now, so maybe just, you know, get your act together. No. That's enough for her to be fired, right? Surely. But I feel like that's how liberals see things as well. Like, they think it's like a sort of tap on the wrist situation. It's like, look, well, don't do it again kind of thing. We're all friends here. Slap on the wrist. It's like, no, that was really bad. And then it's lovely because you've got, oh, you know, hot taser ladies trending, and it's all fun and games because is it Ruby or Shirley? Could be either of them. How cute. Acting as though, like, witnessing that wouldn't make even more people now on board. I feel like even the left would at this point be like, I know Conrad is, like, bad and we don't support Conrad, but what on earth was the head of unit doing there? Like, what? Ruby says, you know, she needs time, you know, she wants some time alone to heal from being with the doctor. And Kate's kind of like, it made me laugh because I know it's not meant to be this, but she's, like, palling up. It's like she's kind of, like, wants to make sure that Ruby's not going to make a complaint. And again, like, and I feel like this has got to be intentional, right? Because you've got Kate giving her a hug, and Shirley says, like, oh, you've already got 2 mums. What do? Do you collect them? You know, because you've got Ruby with her mum who loves her, and then her biological mum, and then you've got her grandma, and then Kate, who's like the surrogate mum figure. Are you telling me we're not supposed to, in our minds, kind of associate... Are we not meant to think about Conrad at the start there? And think about the fact that maybe we are all creatures that need to be loved and cared for, and sometimes things go terribly wrong because we don't have that love, and people who are given love find it easier to maybe express their love sometimes. And, like, people, I just think it's sad. I do think it's sad, and it makes me wonder, like, what would have happened had that child been validated and not abused and treated kindly by people. Would we be in this situation now? And I just think that's really sad. I think that we're all products of our environment. Like, I don't believe that any child is, like, inherently bad or destined to be bad. And we are our choices, but I also think our choices are kind of informed by the way we're raised and the love we're shown and the care we're given, the messages we receive. So yeah, Conrad's story to me is a tragedy, and I do feel sad. I do feel sad for that kid who hero worshipped the doctor, and it became something else, and now this has happened. I feel like, I'm sorry, like, people will say, you know, like, I'm too... like, I'm sorry if it's too much empathy here. I don't think Conrad was loved. And, like, you could call me radical, but I wonder what he would have become if he was loved. I wonder what he could have been there. Like, the qualities in him that could have been different. So Conrad ends up in a cell, which is right. I'm not saying that's wrong. He should. He basically pointed a gun at people. He boxed a ton of people. He shot a man. He should definitely be in the cell. I'm not saying he shouldn't be in the cell. But I think this final scene with the doctor and Conrad, I think it shocked me. Like, it really, really stunned me because I was not expecting what happened there. So the doctor shows up, and knowing what I know about the Doctor, I think I was anticipating him showing up and kind of saying to Conrad basically what I said near the start, which is, I'm so sorry about what happened to you when you were younger, but the way you've treated people is absolutely appalling, and you get the choice right now to decide what you're going to do with your future. And that starts right now. So you need to take accountability for basically what you've done, and you need to try and make amends and do things better. Because to me, that's the Doctor. And I think it's even more jarring because Conrad is at this point already imprisoned. He's not like capturing him. He's not on the loose and having to bring him in. He's already captured. He's already in prison for what he's doing. And okay, I do actually get it from the Doctor's perspective because it's out of sync. The Doctor doesn't know that this is an abused kid, right? He hasn't met him yet. I understand the Doctor's anger entirely because Ruby's his best mate. Ruby's been treated absolutely terribly. That makes sense to me. But I do find it sad. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. It is sad. That thing, that noise that he's fixated on all his life, seeing the TARDIS appear. He's always wanted to go inside. It's finally happening. And this is obviously a very mixed up, traumatized boy, right? Regardless of what you think of him, he's obviously been created by this sort of trauma and being unloved and all that stuff. So for that to happen, and the Doctor to be, first of all, smiling, right? The Doctor to be all friendly and like, everything's fine. You have to be invited into my TARDIS, you know. Only special people are allowed to be here. And I think it's sad because no matter how awful he's been, that is a kind of escapist fantasy as a kid you think of. Like, you think maybe I'll be rescued because I am special and, like, someone can see that and maybe someone will rescue me. Maybe someone will get me out of this. So this is the speech that he gets given. And again, I'm not saying the Doctor's wrong for giving the speech, but I think the way it's framed by the episode is so cruel and made me feel actually nauseous. You have to be invited into my TARDIS, Conrad, to be special, but you're special for all the wrong reasons. And the Doctor is really hateful here, and, you know, it is justified. It is justified in regards of, like, what he's done to Ruby, but to me, this feels like a moment where this is a turning point in Conrad's life. I'm sure we must have been shown his childhood for a reason. Like, am I crazy? I think we were. I think that is the moment where Conrad either decides to take accountability and responsibility and turn things around, or he's going to be radicalized again, right? I think the Doctor's actions in this scene are actually going to be, the way I perceive it, is this is going to be something the Doctor's going to look back on and think, I behaved with anger rather than compassion, and I wonder if I could have reached him. Like, I wonder if I could have done something differently here and changed him. And I know, like, for us watching, he's meant to represent the far right, and I totally get that. Like, those people are awful, horrible, terrible people. But again, like, I have to believe that there's the possibility that people can turn things around. I have to believe there's a chance. Like, rather than enjoying their humiliation ritual, for me to enjoy that, I need to see someone that's basically Benjamin Netanyahu, not Conrad on the level they made him. You know, it really is like the worst, most torturous thing you could do to that child abuse victim, to give him that scene. So this is the speech. And right, the speech the Doctor gives, let me just say, it is a great speech. It's wonderfully delivered. I just, again, don't think it works with this Conrad, the way he's been written, the way the story's been given. It's obviously a brilliant speech aimed at the far right. Obviously. Like, it's meant to be aimed at, like, Andrew Tate, at, like, Elon Musk, at these people who are monetizing their hatred of minorities and trans people and immigrants. Like, that's what it's meant as. So let me read the speech out. It's a good speech. You see, I am fighting a battle on behalf of everyday people who just want to get through their day and feel safe and warm and fed. And then along comes this noise. All day long, this relentless noise. Cowards like you weaponizing lies, taking people's insecurity and fear and making it currency. You are exhausting. You stamp on the truth, choke our bandwidth, and shred our patience, because the only strategy you have is to wear us down. But the thing is, Conrad, I have energy to burn and all the time in the universe. Works really, really well as a speech against the far right, but in the context of the episode, I will say again, I don't think he's been established as properly far right. I think it's a bit lazy. Because it comes off as, based on how Conrad's been in the episode and the other protesters, it feels like the Doctor is talking about, like, the protest and the criticism as being noise. I know that's not the intention. I know the intention is that he's meant to be a stand-in for the far right, and, you know, you are holding us back, you're being annoying with your, like, regressive views and constantly bombarding us with that. But actually, Conrad doesn't do that in the episode. At least we're not aware of that. We know that he's got ableist views, but we don't get very much of that. He's essentially asking for accountability and believes UNIT is lying. He's a conspiracy theorist who maybe believes the conspiracy. It just doesn't land. Conrad kind of smiles. He says, you know, what is this, an intervention? Are you here to save my soul? I wish the Doctor was there to save your soul, Conrad. I wish he'd try. I wish at least he'd try. And again, it's because, like, the Doctor is somebody who has this empathy for, like, the Master, for example, right? And Margaret's the thing. I love Boomtown. Boomtown is one of my actual favourite episodes, genuinely, because it's that idea that people could be different with a different upbringing, right? It's that, and I believe that on a core level, like, when you look at generational abuse, when you look at these things, we all have a choice to make, and I believe that if we show people love and kindness and a better way, I just think people have more chance of turning out better. We are the products of our environment, like, we have to be. I'm very much nurture rather than nature in that regard, because that's the only thing that makes sense to me. Like, we become what we receive, ultimately. And again, in a show like Doctor Who with, like, the Master is like a mass murderer. He's genocide. He decimated the population of humans. He's done the most awful things imaginable. But the Doctor is a hero, and part of what makes the Doctor a hero is that the Doctor's always thinking back to that kid who went mad, right? And even in the classic series when we didn't have that, the story that they'd once been friends, and that on some level he used to have some goodness in him, and the Doctor constantly reaching for that. And I just think it is a bit lazy, and I don't care that he's meant to be far right. That, to me, is just kind of jarring and at odds with the show. And I just think it's unhelpful, honestly, because what does it solve, really? It makes people feel good, like, oh yeah, that's it, get Conrad, because he's meant to represent the far right. But it doesn't solve anything at all. It doesn't get into why, it doesn't get into how, it doesn't get into changing it. And that's the next step, right? That's the step we need. That is the step we need right now. The Doctor gives him, like, a rundown, which is especially cruel. I understand it's because he's been horrible to Ruby, but he says here, you want spoilers, I'll tell you your future. You die in a prison cell, boiling in anger and poison until your heart packs in at age 49, alone and unloved, forgotten. And I could have sobbed, like, genuinely. Sorry if it's my own trauma talking, but the thought of that little boy ending up there like that is a complete tragedy. Forgotten, unloved, voiceless. Like, that's heartbreakingly sad. That's not me saying he's a hero character, he's a villain, but that is heartbreakingly sad, and I do feel compassion. I think that's horrible. The Doctor says, the world carries on, the world gets better, you aren't even a footnote, just ashes on the wind. And then Conrad squares up to him. He says, I don't accept your reality, right? He gets into his face, he squares up. And I feel like with the Doctor in this universe, and especially in the most recent eras, being presented almost as a god, there is a kind of bravery in that, in a weird way. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, he's a villain, but he's squaring up. I do not believe your reality, and I do not accept it. And it's interesting because it's kind of fear. It's like the denial comes from fear. It's from low self-worth. Like, it's a really strong point in the episode when Conrad does that. And again, I'm sitting there thinking, what would have happened if this Conrad could have been there when he was a kid? I wonder what would have happened if someone squared up to his mother and said, I reject your reality. I reject it. But no one was, and so there he is in the prison, and he's going to die alone and unloved at the age of 49. Great. I love to see that. I love to see that the Doctor doesn't try and rescue him in any way. Doesn't try and change his mind. I love it. I love to see that. And again, it's like, why show me that? Maybe if you hadn't shown me that first scene, it would have been alright, but it's painful. It really is. I feel like this is going to be so long. Like, I genuinely think this is going to be, like, multiple hours. So if you're still here with me, thank you, and I'm glad you're here. A Christmas Carol does it well, is what I'll say, with, like, the cycle of abuse kind of thing, because people are actually saying to me, like, don't you understand the cycle of abuse? And it's like, oh, I understand it. I do understand it, indeed. I understand it. I do understand it. But I just think that when you're doing a show for kids, many of whom are in that situation, it very much needs to be very clear. It needs to be that the choice is yours. You could have come from a really, really bad place. You now get to make the choice to do better. And I think A Christmas Carol is fantastic, where Kazran is a villain, in this regard anyway. It's good in that regard. The fact that Kazran is a villain, you see his childhood and how he became that way, and there's that hope at the end, which is that even now, you are not as bad. You don't have to be as bad because you didn't hit the boy. You chose not to hit the boy. And again, like, it's fine if they wanted to make Conrad that villain, but you need to, in my view, explicitly show him getting that. Like, you know, as in, you have a choice, Conrad. You're not an evil person inherently. You went through some bad stuff, but you have to choose. And for him then to turn that down, that's fine. But without that there, oh, it was horrible. It was really horrible. Anyway, I'd love to know what you think. Yeah, thank you if you're still watching. Yeah, so people were definitely not happy with my takes on this episode, but I do stand by them, and I can't apologize for feeling empathy for that character. I'm sorry, like, I can't make myself not feel empathy for that character. Maybe that's wrong of me, but I can't. I have to be honest. I felt bad for him. I felt bad for that villain. I did. Okay. I love you loads. I'll see you really soon. Let me know what you think. Think whatever you want. Yeah. Alright, love you. Bye.